and if they expect me to walk away from Luton with nothing, I'll make very sure there's nothing to walk away from.
Hello and welcome to the ORH Hatter podcast. I'm Billy Mully, joined today by Kieran Robertson and Stephen Day. You might be noticing there's no Jamie Castle. He has opted to miss out. He's given us the two fingers because of an opportunity he has got tomorrow. We'll speak a little bit further about that once it comes out, but it's exciting, so keep your eyes peeled on our socials. Today, it's more of the same transfer business, news from around the club, and we've also got our segment of Ask Us Anything, the first time we've actually done that. So let's hope it goes okay. Kieran, I'll come to you first. How are you getting on?
Yeah, not bad. I mean, after what I said about pre-season and bookmarking Ryanair on my laptop, it's safe to say that I have unbookmarked Ryanair after the pre-season announcements, which is a little bit underwhelming. But yeah, all in all, not too bad. Nice and busy with work, nice and busy with all things Luton, nice and busy with things all Oak Road Hatter. So it's an exciting time at the moment.
Stephen, what about you? You not fancying a little trip to Sheffield? Treat the missus?
Nah, not for me. Done it before. Did it for the FA Cup a while ago. So was it League One? So yeah, I'm all good. I'm doing pretty well. Glad to be back on. Glad to be on with a camera now as well. Now that I'm in my new place, so there isn't a lot of mess behind me. It's actually organised. Just hoping to get some Luton pictures up here. Yeah.
Good to hear. And as we've spoken about the last couple of weeks, we're part of the Premier League, of course. Where have you been if you don't notice that? But we're also going to be doing a lot more content on fantasy football this season. And we've already started our league. That's up and running. Oak Road Hatter, type it in. And the passcode for that is Z2W8V7. We've already got loads of names in. It's going to be interesting. I'm pretty sure Jamie has attached a Luton shirt, hasn't he, to the winner. So, let's drain Jamie of his money and somebody else get winning, because I'm fed up of being part of fantasy football leagues where Jamie wins all the time. So it'll be nice to see somebody else do that. Maybe that's a little bit mean, but
I think in reality, Jamie should have put whoever finishes behind me in second spot gets to win the shirt.
Wins the league.
We know he's gonna win it.
Lads, what's our team names as well? Because I've not had a glance over. I've named mine Osho owns Watford.
I like that. Stephen?
Oh my gosho FC.
Oh no, I did see yours. That was brilliant. Yeah.
Mine's awful for the moment. I've got a placeholder. So I've just gone for Mully's 11 whilst I think of something good. So
you got time.
I've got time. I've got 4 weeks until the season starts. So that's all good. As mentioned, we're going to be speaking about some of the news that's happened over the last few days. We've also got a few more transfer rumours and the first Ask Us Anything. So exciting times ahead. We'll start, as I say, with the news, and the first thing to come to is probably the pre-season fixtures, as we've already alluded to. We've got one against Ipswich Town at Colchester United, which was just out of the blue. There was chat about Ajax, there was chats about Royal Antwerp. I know it was pure speculation, but Ipswich Town, it'll be a good test, but Slightly underwhelming, let's say.
Do you know what? I texted my dad the other day and I said, it is the most peak Luton thing to say, by the way, we're playing away at Ipswich. Oh, but it's not at Portman Road. It's at Colchester United. And like all of that thing in one sentence. And I just remember saying, that is painfully underwhelming. And then Sheffield Wednesday was just funny on the aspect of we're Premier League. They've just come up from the Championship. I'd consider it a good test, to be fair, to promoted sides. And then you go on their comment section and they're like, oh, why are we only playing Luton? Surely we should be playing better than this. And it's like, all right, lads. It wasn't long ago you were in League One. It wasn't long ago what you were actually playing us. But fine, each their own.
Do you know what? It could be worse. We could be some team down the M1 playing against a non-league team in Boreham Wood and getting held to a draw. But
and throwing a flare in the ground. Let's not forget that. Mark, if you have that photo, insert that photo, because that is embarrassing to say the least.
Also, we have seen Sonny Bradley join Derby County. There was interest, I think, from the Championship. I think Rotherham were in for him, but he's gone to Derby, a team that will be vying for automatic promotion. What do you think, Stephen? Do you think that's a good move for him? We've seen him lift the League One title. He's also been an important player for us in the Championship over the years, maybe not so much last year. Do you think the top end of League One is about right? Do you think he's somebody that could make an impact for a team pushing for promotion?
Yeah, definitely. I think he's that is around about his level, maybe like, lower Championship, top half of League One, pushing for promotion. I think it's like it really depends on what the team would be looking for as well, and I think Derby sort of need that experience to get them over the line, because I think I can't say that I know a lot about their team from last season, but I think they were like really inconsistent. They had some good spells and then had some really, really bad spells, and I think they will benefit a lot from his experience, which is one of the things you need to say get out of League One, and I think he's probably not going to play every game because his age and everything, and maybe personal issues as well. But I reckon he'll probably get a good few games there, and he'll be like a really important player for them in a promotion push. And I can't see why they wouldn't get promoted this season. And so I think it's a really good signing for them, and I think Bradley will do really well there as well.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how he fare up. As we sort of mentioned before, he's somebody that knows that league well. Even before us, he played for Plymouth and done well there. Obviously won promotion with us, cemented himself in a Championship team that done well. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how he does when he goes back to that level. I think defensively speaking, he'll be absolutely fine. In possession, again, fine. I done something for a Derby County fan page. Said he's sort of the only kind of downside of it to him, which was exposed a little bit last season, was a lack of mobility. But I think at League One level, I think his natural intelligence will help him out for that. Yeah, I'm excited to see how it goes. Brilliant, another brilliant personality as well. Somebody that has helped create this atmosphere within the playing squad that's brilliant to be a part of. We speak of Pelly, we speak of Lockyer, two very good characters, but Bradley probably a little bit more reserved, but somebody that you want in your changing room if you're going for promotion. So Sonny Bradley, hopefully it goes well. Hopefully get you on the pod one day. That's the aim anyway. That's what we're going to be trying to do. We'll go on to pre-season now. That started on Thursday. The players reported back. Good to see some photos and then some announcements later. One today, one back on Friday, or might have even been Thursday, with Tom Lockyer signing fresh terms. First of all, Kieran, Lockyer penning down a new deal at Kenilworth Road. Life is good.
It is, and I think I said with Pelly this morning, like Pelly was inevitable. It was one of those things where it would have been very, very, very surprising if Pelly didn't sign on. Whereas Lockyer, there was a little bit of uncertainty. However true that rumour of him to Everton was, obviously it doesn't matter now. But it did throw a bit of speculation, and it did throw a little bit of, oh, what if maybe he has got offers, like maybe not. He probably had a lot more offers, maybe based on us not going up potentially. And if we hadn't, I'd hazard a guess and say he probably would have moved on, even if it was to a lower end Premier League team. But for him to sign on is crucial. Keeping as many players, like we said last week, keeping as many players as we can in that squad that are of a good enough quality to potentially feature in the Premier League. Lockyer stands out again as a starting 11 player compared to the conversation last week, which was more about the squad depth in that sense. Crucial, I think, goes without saying, club captain for me next season, without a doubt. He stepped in when Bradley obviously wasn't playing and was the focal point in our back three. So for me, not only am I happy he's signed on, give that man the armband immediately, make every Luton fan happy.
Steve, Pelly Ruddock Mpanzu will be starting his 11th season as a Hatter. That is an incredible stat, even more incredible when you consider that's from the 5th tier of English football right up until the best league in world football. How exciting is that for him and us Luton fans that have seen him play in the National League? We've seen him not struggle, but we've seen him adapt to every division that he's been in and then come out on the other side of being a real strong player in that division. Do you think he's somebody that, might take a little bit of adapting to the Premier League like he has done in other divisions and then he'll start to really impose himself?
Yeah, it will definitely take some time to establish himself. I think I still see him being starting 11, if not very close to the starting 11. I think one of the things that worries me is sometimes he can be like a teeny bit slow, and obviously in the Premier League, like Championship is quick, but Premier League will be a different level. There are some worries about whether he'll adapt to the pace, but in reality, like, he's going to be a good player no matter what. And it is really exciting for us to have another thing that is making history with a player that's gone from non-league to Premier League with one club, which, I think we can all somewhat safely say that's never going to happen again. It might do, but I kind of doubt it. And and I think with his rise as well, it's kind of, I think the leagues where he's had to adapt the most, there's been time for him to adapt. And this is going to be like the biggest test for him, because you think going up to League Two, we had a few years to adapt, and he, was a really important player for us. And then League One, he only one season, and I can't remember him featuring like every single game, unless I'm remembering wrong. Didn't he feature in every game that season? Didn't he like miss out on like half an hour in the last game? I might be thinking of someone else.
You're testing me.
Anyway,
you are testing me.
Championship. He took a little time to adapt, but again, he did really, really well to adapt. And I think a lot of that experience as well will help him to adapt to the Premier League. And I think his passing ability and his sort of, I don't know how to say it, like he sort of just knows where to put the ball a lot of the time. Even if it doesn't work out, he knows where the players are going to be, and it's that sort of knowledge that you're going to need within the team in the Premier League. Because if we bring another player, another midfielder in, and they're not exactly as familiar with the style of play and where the players are going to be, you could be caught out a lot. So I think it's going to be really, really good to watch him, and I love the man. I'm so happy that he signed on. As Kieran said, it was inevitable, but I love him. I've always loved him. I've always defended him. And remember, today there was a video of him, his goal against Dartford, and I just that and all of his other goals just brilliant. And I love the man so much.
He has served some brilliant memories over the years, and I'm sure he will going into the Premier League. There's a couple more headline-y bits to go over. Our development squad started their pre-season with a 2-1 victory over Hitchin Town. watched by over 1,000 people, which is great to see. So many people going down to watch development squad. Some really, really exciting talents in that squad. Like Jake Berger, Tyrone Newton as well. Two very, very good players. Millar Matthews Lewis as well, continuing. I think he signed a new contract in the summer. There's some really, really impressive talents coming through that, and it'll be interesting to see what kind of path some of those go on going into the Premier League campaign. We've also got Amari'i to talk about. He opened up his Jamaican account on, when was that? That was yesterday night. He scored in a 1-0 win in the quarterfinals against Guatemala in the Gold Cup? Is that what it's called?
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
so. Yeah.
I
Gold Cup.
started immediately thinking of the racing there. I was going mad, but yeah, here's the Gold Cup as well. Tidy little right-footed finish in nosebleed territory, and it's good to see him making his mark. Don't think he's going to have much time off, poor Amari'i, but I don't think he'll mind because he's going to be a Premier League footballer. I'm sure that thought in the back of his head will keep pushing him through. We'll go on to some transfer rumours now. It's slowed down compared to last week. Last week took a real turn, and there was lots to bring to you. But the latest one's here. Asmir Begovic, we've spoken about him before, but an update on his situation. Apparently, Luton are in advanced contract talks, according to TalkSport's Alex Crook. That one has a bit of I'm trying to say words here, and I'm really struggling. I need a drink of water, but it seems inevitable that is going to happen. We're the only Premier League side that are interested in him now. After he turned down Everton, he's experienced. He's got. We've seen what he can do in the Premier League in the past. When he played for Bournemouth, he also performed to a very, very high standard. I'd be happy with it. And I know we've spoken about it a little bit more, but general feelings, if Begovic was to come in, is he going to be number one? Is he somebody that will, push the competition levels, or is it too hard to say because we don't really know who else we're looking at bringing in?
I think because of his age and experience, I'd be hard pressed to think of an alternative to him not being number one, if that makes sense. Like, for me, he is number one until I'm proven otherwise. And again, I think it all comes down to, it's fair to say we're in the market for two keepers. Again, we didn't take the option on Horvath for 1.5 million. Very surprised. But equally, if the club think we can get better in, then I'm going to back the team. I'm going to back the recruitment. And Begovic is a good sign of that already. It then depends on what option two is. I saw Travers was linked to another Premier League team earlier. I can't remember who it was off the top of my head. But he was linked with another move. No, it wasn't Prem. It was Millwall. He was linked with a move to Millwall. And I thought, okay. But the only thing that struck me there was, is he likely to get first team at Millwall, or does he want to play on the bench for us? Because I don't think Travers gets ahead of Begovic at the moment. If we signed him, and that's a long-term thing, yeah, because Begovic is 36, he's not exactly a spring chicken. But then it leads you to, with Walton going out on loan as well, who is then number two? Because for me, James Shea is not number two for a Premier League team. And that sounds horrible, and I know there's a lot of sentimental Luton fans out there, but I think it's evident we are in the market for two goalkeepers.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I do think we're in the market for two goalkeepers. I think you can tell by the kind of goalkeepers that have been linked. There's a clear distinction between the set that is Begovic, Hitchin. I think there's another goalkeeper as well that's more experienced, but then we've also been linked with, as you say, Travers, somebody that's of a completely different profile, completely different stage of development. So yeah, it would not be a surprise if Begovic was to come in, and we did bring a keeper that's 23 to 26, that kind of age bracket. We'll go on to next transfer rumour. Ashley Young, a rumour that has divided the Luton Town fan base so much. We had to put a poll out about it, and I'll find the official figures in a second. But coming to you boys first, Ashley Young, what do you make of him? Well, I get to give you the official latest line. It looks like he's turning down an approach from Luton to sign for Everton. Whether that happens over the next few days remains to be seen. But would you have liked Ashley Young at Luton Town? Does his Watford connections haunt you, or do you sort of see past that?
I mean, for me, I'm a bit like, I don't care that much. Like, it is years ago, and I wouldn't have really been bothered by it. But at the same time, I didn't really want him because of the age and whether or not he can actually do something for us. Like, I'm not saying that the current players we've got are better than him, because he's got 20 years of Premier League experience, something like that. But I don't think that he would do a better job for us than what our current players would do. And I think it doesn't, even though like we're talking about Begovic, like with his age and wanting to sign him, I wouldn't think it would fit the bill of us signing players that will improve us. Which, Begovic would probably improve our goalkeeping situation, but Ashley Young, I don't think would improve us that much or at all. And there wouldn't be any value in it. We'd just be spending money on someone that might be able to provide a bit of quality here and there that might keep us up. But I just can't see him doing anything magical. And even though we're now probably not signing him, I wasn't a fan of it because of the realism of it rather than Watford connections, or sorry, Scum connections.
Kieran,
I think the trouble with I'm quite 50-50. Like, I can see why we've gone in for Ashley Young. Like, 38, serial winner, lots of experience in the Premier League, lots of experience abroad. Like, I think a lot of people forget he spent a few years at Inter Milan as well, like, and was first team for Inter Milan. Like, he didn't just go to Italy for a holiday. And the Watford thing strikes me because I think when people post their opinions, they were very much like, yeah, but he's Watford. And it's like, but if you take your Watford tinted glasses off for 5 seconds and look at him as a player and what he can add to us, it was all right when Matty Spring went to Watford and came back. It was all right when we got Rob Edwards, who was ex-Watford. What's the difference? Like, in that respect, that was the only thing that I was thinking. When it comes to his playing ability, there's quality there. There's no doubt. And there's a reason that Villa, who finished as high as they did, backed him for over half the season over Matty Cash. Like, they had that nice 50-50 rotation. But to sort of back Stephen as well, similar to what he was saying, in a sense, the age thing, 38 years old, fine. Is there quality there? Yes. But again, same as I said with Begovic, he's not a spring chicken. So then it makes you wonder, cool, last season he had legs, evidently. But at some point, the man ain't going to have the legs. And all it takes is us overpaying on wages, just that little bit, just to bring him in. So we've got that Premier League experience, and bang, there goes the legs. And from the standpoint of when I saw just before recording of Everton wanting him and Everton more than likely to sign him than us, I thought, do you know what? You're going to pay a lot more than we will in wages. He's going to have wage demands that are probably unrealistic for us. Hands up, take him, do what you like. Because I know full well that we would have come at it with a respectable wage for us, and even still being Premier League, he'd have probably scoffed at it. Whereas Everton would have gone, you want this? Okay, there you go. All right, all power to you then. Like, you do you. That's fine.
I think, judging from what you two have said, it's been reflected in the poll results. We put on Twitter, would you like to see Ashley Young join Luton Town this summer? 32% went yes, absolutely. 41% went no chance, and 27% were undecided. And yeah, I think it speaks volumes that there's no real sort of clear winner in that. The fact that undecided is also quite high. Yeah, I think it speaks volumes about that. There's no real standout winner here. It would have been interesting to see what would have happened if he was to come to Luton. As we mentioned there, Premier League experience, a lot of quality with the ball at his feet. You think back to Rob Edwards when he saw his first bit of success with Forest Green. It was with wing backs that crossed the ball and got at their defences, and that's what Ashley Young still can provide, even at the age he is now. We've seen Alfie Doherty thrive under Rob Edwards last season. And yeah, I think he would have done a decent enough job. Watford connections, of course. But yeah, for me, Watford connections don't override the fact that he is a very good player with good levels of experience. Wages, yeah, I think that could have been a stumbling block. But realistically, would we have offered him anything other than a 1-year deal? I can't
Absolutely
really
not.
see that. No. So yeah,
I think something I forgot to mention as well is it's like sort of how much value is there going to be in the wage that we'd give him? Like, it was probably going to be quite high, even though probably a respectful offer, probably would have been the highest paid player at the club. And I say probably, I'm not an expert, but I think the value of what he could have provided with how much we would have been spending wouldn't have been as high as maybe investing in a younger player, someone that does have Premier League potential or is somewhat Premier League quality now, and someone that we can sort of rely on and grow, and have someone to challenge Alfie Doughty as well. So I think that's another thing with I wasn't too keen on it because I was thinking what value would it really bring, to for how much we'd be spending on him. So yeah.
I think we're quite lucky in the sense of not every recruitment team in the country is like this, but I think Luton more so than anyone, we look at more at return of investment. And like to link to what you said, Stephen, then it's like you look at how much we would spend in a 1-year deal with Ashley Young. If we go down, we then look at that as, well, he's not staying with us in the Championship. He's now 40 years old, and we've wasted X amount a week on a guy that hasn't helped our cause, right? But you go for someone else who's cheaper, younger, 23, even pushing 25, let's say, who's cheaper, but then hypothetically, again, if we go down, then it's someone who's more than likely going to stay on in the Championship, continues to grow, continues to progress. Or on another flip side, you look at it as we're staying in the Premier League, they've cemented themselves, and then there's potential sell-on value. Like Ashley Young, to sort of finish us off with him, I don't think now in hindsight doesn't provide that return of investment for us.
Yeah, no, I get that. Yeah. It's an interesting one as reflected in the poll. We'll go on to the next one, which was Thomas Kaminski, the Blackburn goalkeeper that we've previously been linked to. There's been an update. Blackburn is standing firm with a valuation of around £6 million. That was the original report, and the update was that Luton have tabled a couple of offers that haven't gone above £1 million. So there's a big levels of disparity there so far. An update from Lancashire Telegraph has suggested that he will be attainable for between 3 to 4 million. So it'll be interesting to see if that's a value Luton will go to, or if they might look elsewhere. Within that original report as well, it was Kaminski being looked at, as well as Lee Nichols at Huddersfield Town, another goalkeeping duo of a different sort of profile to what we mentioned about Begovic and Heaton, and then the younger sort of slot of Travers. I think both Kaminski and Nichols are 30, so they're in that sort of good age, a very good age for a goalkeeper. Give you a lot of years at that age. So yeah, as we said, Ashley Young at 38, you've still got a long way to go there. The last one was Tom Cannon, Everton striker, played on loan for Preston North End last season, scored 8 goals in 20, Republic of Ireland Youth International. Exciting striker, has done a lot at Premier League 2 level as well. I think Sunderland as well, they're in for him. £3 million is being touted at the moment, but again, it remains to be seen if that's something Luton will be fully interested in once knowing his valuation. Tom Cannon, 20 years old, Stephen, a player who's already scored a few championship goals. Do you think he's somebody that is a good player to chase for the future? And if he was to arrive, would you think that sending him back to the championship on loan might be the next best step?
I do think so, to be fair, because I mean, in reality, if we buy him, it'd be sort of either him or Joe Taylor as the sort of backup striker um, behind Morris and Adebayo. And to be fair, I think if we bought him, we'd have to send either one of those on loan to the championship. And I think now that I'm thinking about it, I prefer Cannon come in and be sort of someone that we can develop in the team, and then Joe Taylor go out to the championship on loan. Because I think they're around about the same age, or Joe Taylor's a bit older. I think he needs a lot more exposure to the first team than what Cannon would, because if Taylor is that age, then you'd need sort of to let him have a lot more first team exposure, which he'd get in the championship, I believe. And then Cannon is sort of, he'd probably, if he's a long term, he would be a long term thing. He'd benefit a lot more from sort of being at the club, being with the coaching staff, being with the team, and being able to find out what we can get out of him as well. But I think if we were going to start buying players for the future, now would be the time to do it while we've got not excess funds, but while we've got funds to do it, because we're not going to be getting, if we get relegated, we're not going to be getting in hundreds of millions a year. So I think if we can use the money wisely, now is the time to do it and splash out a little bit on players that we can get value out of in the future.
He didn't realise on mute, has he?
I know. It actually reminded me there. It knew that I'd ballsed up, and it told me. But that rounds up our transfer roundup. We'll be back in a second for the next part, which is Ask Us Anything. So we'll go on to the second part of this particular episode, and we're on to Ask Us Anything, something we haven't trialed out before. So it's gonna be fun to see what happens. We've got a few questions in from fans. I'm going to put them to the boys, and I'm also going to join in as well. We've got a good few questions on Twitter, some on Instagram as well. So thank you very much for sending them all in. Our editor, Mark, has kindly put them all together to make my job easier. So once again, I find myself saying thank you, Mark. I will just get the first one out now, and the first one comes in from one of our writers at Oak Road Hatter, Alex Oakhill. He said, and it's a good one to start on, away days, which one are we looking forward to the most next season? And I think we've all sort of discussed it in a little bit of detail, but we've sort of assessed them all, haven't we? We haven't really given our opinions as to which one stands out to you as the one that you cannot wait for. I can see you both thinking. I'll go to you, Kieran.
I don't. Yeah, one sprung to mind straight away. It's the same answer I think I gave a couple of pods ago. United for me. United away. I said at the time, I remember saying that Manchester as a footballing city is class. Can't wait to do United away. Obviously, got the football museum up there. If you want to do a weekender and City are playing the other day, or you got Salford or whatever else, like, it is class. Looking forward to it, because I also said on that same podcast, I think it's the one Big Six game I think we might get some points from. And yeah, like I said, National Football Museum, classic football shirts, plenty of places to go out, have a drink, have a good night out. Know a couple of people up in Manchester as well. So that being said, resounding vote, Man United away.
Stephen, what about yourself?
It's so hard, because obviously all of the top 6 or big 6, whatever you want to call them, are all going to be good. I think Everton, just because of the stadium and either Merseyside teams, to be fair, but I think Everton for me is just because I've sort of been up there for Tranmere away, but I think seeing Everton Stadium would be brilliant because that is going to be knocked down soon, and I think that was going to be, if we didn't get promoted, I was going to be like, I need to get up there for a game before they knock it down, because I was devastated to have missed a game at the Bowling. So it's something that is, on the calendar for me. And I think obviously Liverpool will be a great day out. Great, can make a weekend of it. I know people will, and that'll be a brilliant away day. And I think, not predicting things just yet, but I think it's a sort of away day where we could get points, and if we did, it would be brilliant. So, that's the standout for me. And then obviously both North London clubs, I can't wait for Arsenal and Spurs. Just both stadiums I love, and I want to do. I've done them both. One Emirates for football, and then Spurs for NFL. But I remember being there, and I was thinking, what would this be like if Luton were here on an away day? And that was 2 years ago. And now I'm like, we're actually going. We're fucking going. So yeah, I'm well excited for that as well.
I've got deja vu because we've definitely, as you both alluded to there, we've definitely spoken about these away days. But in the event of speaking about something new, my one, and this bit's not new, my go-to for next year is Liverpool. Obviously went to uni there, love the city, also used to work there. I was a steward for a bit during just before COVID hit. I worked as a steward at Liverpool, so I cannot wait to go back as a Luton Town fan and hopefully take all 3 points with us. We'll go on to the next question. Thank you, Alex, for that first one. The second one from LTFC Talk. Which 3 centre-backs start in our strongest 11? And that is a very, very good question. I'm struggling to... There's so many different combinations in my head, but I'll come to you first, Stephen. Now we know that Lockyer is staying. We've got Mads Andersen in the building. If you think there's another centre-back that could come in to potentially challenge another spot, feel free to shout their name as well. But if you were to name your starting 3 centre-backs for Brighton away now, who would you go for?
I think I always forget about Bell as a centre-back, but I think he just has to be in there just because of last season. I need to stop ignoring him as a centre-back and think of him as a wing-back. I think, Bell, Lockyer and Burke. I love Burke. I think he'd be brilliant in the Premier League if he could stay fit. And I think Mads Andersen will need time to bed in. But that would be my go-to and probably what I think is most likely as well.
Kieran, what about you? Where's your head up with those starting 3 centre-back slots?
So Stephen's kind of taken a few words out of my mouth already, because I'm actually going to go with Bell, Lockyer, Anderson. But for the same reason that Stephen mentioned about Burke, I'm going to twist it round. You said Burke if he's fit. And that is the reason I have not gone with him. Because I agree, Burke is solid. Burke is incredible. Burke is an aerial threat. However, in the Premier League, we cannot be relying on a centre-half who is fit for half a season. And that sounds naff, because we all love Reece Burke and he's been quality for us the last couple of years. But again, I think I said this last week when I was asked if Mads Andersen would start for us. And my simple answer was, there's no reason. There's a reason we've paid a record fee for him. And that for me is enough to justify the quality of him. And that is why he'll start. So based on currently, Obviously, I think we're probably still one centre-half signing short, potentially. We'll see. See if Luton cross that bridge. But for the meantime, Bell, Lockyer, Anderson, just in case that needs clarifying, left to right.
It's good because I've got a different three in my head. I've got Bell, I've got Lockyer, but I've got Osho. I think Osho has reached heights that I didn't think he was capable of last season. Coming to that end of the season, he was unbelievable. And I think he, along with Burke, are the two centre-backs that I envision adapting to the Premier League the best. I think Osho showed at times last season he's still got a, sort of an error in him. But I think maturity added a real element of maturity to his game as the season went on. And we saw the very best of him. Defensively speaking, he's dominant. He is lightning quick. He's so good in recovery, but he can also play. He can play very well. You look back to some of the goals we scored that started with him last season. Then there was one away at Wigan where he played a really good pass into Adebayo or Morris. I'm not too sure which way around it was, and when we scored from that. But he is, in my head, the player that can adapt. Within the back line, at least, he can adapt to the Premier League well. And I think Burke, Anderson, two very, very, very good players to have in behind the starting three that I've mentioned there. I think competition is going to be very high, but I do also agree with Kieran. I do think we need maybe one more, potentially a little bit younger, to maybe at the age bracket of 20 to 22, somebody with real talent to push, but also provide one for the future kind of platform. Because if you look at our forward line, we've got Joe Taylor in, that's an exciting prospect that needs a fair few more games. We don't really have that in our back line. And to go one further in the midfield as well, we've also got someone like Louis Watson, who we'll get onto in a minute. Players that are of high quality, but are only sort of in their infancy of their careers. So I'd like to see a player like that come in. Again, I don't think they'd come on too high of a fee, depending on where they come from. But yeah, I think that in my head, that is the starting three. But yeah, it's good to see that all three of us have different opinions for that. It's a sign of a very good question.
To be fair, I can't believe that I didn't actually consider Gabe Osho in my thoughts. Like, for me, the renaissance of Gabe Osho could genuinely be made into a feature-length film. Like, you look at Watford away, and you had Trusty Kong doing all this and doing all this. And obviously, I made a TikTok, so if you follow our TikTok, respect to you, and you would have seen what I'm alluding to. But you look from that game onwards, if someone from an outside perspective looked at that, watched that man get sent off, laughed off the pitch, you'd think, oh my God, like, how do you bounce back from that? Every single game that man played in from that moment on was minimum an 8 out of 10. Big game player. I was calling it all over Twitter from January onwards. Big game player. Scores against Watford. Big performance in the playoff final, having to sit in the middle because Lockyer went off. That's massive. Like, to put that on your shoulders and be the main man in a playoff final, not to mention all those mini moments before that. As Troy Deeney said once, the cojones on that man. Unbelievable. Like I said, feature-length film, The Renaissance of Gabe Osho. He was in a cinema at Watford a few weeks back. Maybe they should preview it there.
That's brilliant. That is brilliant. We'll go on to the next question here. It's come from another one of our writers, Sam. Another very good question. Which Luton player is best suited to the Premier League? And there's a lot of different ways you can go here. There's players that are maybe athletically speaking ready. There's players that are probably more technically speaking ready. There's loads of different elements to consider here. Stephen, I can see you deep in thought there. Go on. Give us some insight.
I really don't know. Because there's a few that I want to say, but then it's like, for other reasons, someone else might be better. I think for me, it is so hard.
I've got
I'll go over to
yeah, go
Kieran.
two or
Kieran.
three here.
I'll give you some time.
I've got 2 or 3 based on different things. So you mentioned athleticism. If we're talking pure athleticism and pace of the game, Doughty. My only concern with him is would he last 90 minutes every week, which is probably a no. Physicality, I'm going to go with Eli. Morris could be a second place for that. But technical ability then goes to 2 players, either Morris or Lockyer for me, in terms of being able to take the ability they currently have and step up to the league without necessarily needing time to adapt, in a sense. I think they're both Premier League players.
Yeah, good shouts, Steve. And any other names you can throw into that list? Like, say, a Jordan Clark. Do you think he's got the passing capabilities, ball carrying capabilities to thrive in the Premier League?
I mean, yeah, I can't see. I think that this is the thing. It's not hard for me because I'm thinking, oh, who is the one that's going to be best in the Premier League? It's who out of our current proper players is one of the more standout, better players. And it's like you sort of after last season, like you think about Lockyer was brilliant. Kieran was just spent about an hour bigging up Gabe Osho. And Morris has done brilliantly. Adebayo, yeah, his physicality, like there's so much, and I think like Campbell as well. Like he could easily be the most suited to it. But I think for me, it is either Lockyer or Colton Morris, and I think Colton Morris has grown so much in like the last year, and I think his overall ability on the ball, shooting ability, his oh god, it sounds like FIFA, but yeah, his actual ability all round, I think, is one of the best out of our squad. And then the same with Lockyer as well. I think passing and strength is, he can knock people off the ball. He's smart. He's good on the ball, and he's reliable. I think those two. And if I was to choose one, I'd probably say Lockyer out of it. And yeah, I just think those two out of the current crop of players are, most well suited to step up to the Premier League. But we were talking about Pelly earlier, and I think he's going to suit it as well, because I think that's all the stuff that I was saying earlier, like is going to benefit him, and he will hopefully adapt because he's even though he's got a lot of experience with having to adapt, so it's something that he's good at. So that's something that he will be able to carry into the Premier League next season. So yeah, I think I'd say Lockyer for me.
We'll go on to a different kind of question here from HD_Lost in France. Now, as supporters of a Premier League club, what are the best options for overseas fans who have been able to follow almost all the matches via iFollow? It's something I didn't even consider going to the Premier League, that iFollow won't follow us because obviously it's an EFL attached platform. And the answer, which is probably not the best one, is I really don't know. I don't know what you boys think, but going to the Premier League for overseas fans,
I think it depends on where, doesn't it? Because I know ESPN is quite good for coverage, even sort of in Europe as well. Like I remember when we were out in Eindhoven recently. I don't know how much you remember, Stephen, but like whenever we were in some sort of bar or anything, the kids chuckle underneath. Whenever we were in some sort of bar or anything, it was always like ESPN Plus, and that wasn't just for like Eredivisie content either. Like it was across the board. So one would like to assume, I'm not saying this is factual across the board, because otherwise whoever is lost in France in this question is going to kind of go, what's an ESPN? That might be a solution, or like Bill alluded to, if you are someone that wants to, I don't know, go and get a Fire Stick off Amazon, and mate your boy down an alleyway that might be able to sort that out for you, and all power to you. But I don't condone that behaviour. No, naughty.
I think, isn't it like most Premier League games are screened overseas anyway? So I think if you're wanting to watch games, like I think there will be some sort of subscription service that you'll be able to see and find our games on. I think it should be quite easy, to be fair. I can't remember it being that expensive, because I think one of the arguments about TV rights for England is that it costs so much and we get so little compared to overseas territories. So it's one of those where there's a lot of options for other people, but we don't get a lot. But yeah, I think that's I can't think of any actual names, but I'm pretty sure it is like most games are screened on live TV for overseas people.
Yeah,
I think DAZN are starting to get into football now. Like, I know, if for those who don't know what DAZN is, DAZN. If you watch boxing, you definitely know what DAZN is. But I think they sort of started with boxing. They do a lot of darts. But now I think they're branching into football. I'm not quite sure, but fingers crossed, that might be the sort of solution for people in that respect.
Yeah, I think naturally coverage of the Premier League is going to be much better than the Championship, hence the original need for iFollow to come in. I don't know what Luton are going to do in terms of rewatching games. I know the day after you could rewatch the full match replay. I don't know if that's something that will be available via what Hatter's iFollow's becoming, Hatter's Player, I think. So hopefully that feature's still all part of it, because that's a very handy tool. We'll go on to the next question, and it is from a fan account, LTFC 30 points, who gives the rest. What is happening with Joel Latibeaudiere? He's a free agent, young, perfect fit for our recruitment. I have to agree. I think he is a very good player. I think everything about him, from his physicality to his maturity, the fact he came through at Man City and is technically a very good passer of the ball. He's good in his duels. He is a centre back that spent a lot of last season as a right wing back, and he's currently out with Amari'i with the Jamaican national team, playing, I think, as a holding midfielder or even more advanced as number 8. I'm not too sure, but I know he's playing more centrally. I think everything about Joel Latibeaudiere is very Luton, and we've spoken about him before, but I think even more so going into the new season, I think I'm more inclined to have Latibeaudiere as part of our squad going into the new campaign. I think that would tick the box as well with what Kieran and I alluded to a little bit earlier about maybe having another central defensive option. I think Latibeaudiere would be somebody that he could be deployed elsewhere, but he's also somebody that could play in that position, sort of like Glenn Ray, where he wasn't your starting centre back, but we knew if we were short of defensive options, Glenn Ray could do a job in the Championship, and he proved more than okay with that. So I don't know if you boys have a differing view about Latibeaudiere. Again, haven't seen too much of him because he's only young, and the only experiences we've had is probably 2 games against Swansea. But from what I've seen, Latibeaudiere, a big tick next to.
Yeah, I think.
Go on, Stephen.
Yeah, I think for me, like, he's one that sort of, I think we've been linked with him before, and I think it's someone that I think a few of us have had like a bit of an eye on, because he's young, fits the bill of being versatile as well. He's someone that could grow, and also saying that he's out of contract, that he's a free agent now, isn't he? So, it to me, no brainer, because he fits he ticks so many boxes for our recruitment team for what we look for, in terms of, as I said, versatile. I assume I haven't seen him play a lot, but I'd assume that he's probably quite a athletic person as well, considering that he can play right back, right wing back. So yeah, I think in all honesty, like going off of the little knowledge that I know, no brainer really.
100%. Very, very good player. We'll go on now to another one from LTFC Dave. He says, whatever happens this season, Edwards doesn't get sacked. Agree, disagree. Yeah,
Easy, agree.
as long as he doesn't do anything, against the law or anything, then yeah. But in all seriousness, I think Edwards, I think what Dave is alluding to there is if things go tits up, if we don't have a good season, if, our way of playing football doesn't work out in the Premier League, will we stick by Edwards? And I think we will. I think he's got us there. He's obviously in the early stages of the project he started. He evidently was promised time, and we're a club that give him that, unlike another club I know. But I think also with Edwards is that he's played to our advantages so far. I think there's a lot more to come from him. I think in terms of being better on the ball, he's alluded to that many times, even since we've been promoted, that he wants us to be better on the ball. And I think that's something that will come with increased funds and being able to, have a few transfer windows where he's able to bring his kind of profile of player to the club, which I think he'll continue to do. I've said it before. I've been quite bold about it. I think there's potential that Rob Edwards could be an England manager in the future. He's got the connections already. He's been very successful in the early stages of his career. You just have to listen to his coach's voices, interview to get some insight into how intelligent he is. But I think he also places so much trust in his immediate team around him, which I think sometimes undervalued. I think to delegate responsibilities to someone like Richie Kyle, who's been equally as successful, and Paul Trollope, and really believe in what they try to do as well, I think speaks volumes about who he is. He can have that individual success, but as a collective, he's sort of the three of them are brilliant. So yeah, I think keeping Rob Edwards close to the club, regardless of what happens with this season, has to be a must. In terms of his second part of the question, he said, which signing, either so far or to come, is the most important if we are going to survive? I'll come to you first, Stephen, for the first question about Edwards. Does he get sacked? Place him in any scenario? No, that's good to hear.
No.
And then second question, which signing so far or one to come, a potential target, will be the most important if we are going to survive the Premier League drop?
I think it's got to be a goalkeeper, really. And I think we've got established players in every position but that one. And I think if we can, someone like Asmir Begovic, not a spring chicken, but at the same time, plenty of experience and experience of commanding, the defence of Premier League teams as well, obviously. Something that we could need and something that could really help. And I think if it's not him, then it needs to be someone else with experience. But obviously, you don't get a lot of goalkeepers that have a wealth of experience either, that are cheap at least. So I think, yeah, for me, it's got to be goalkeeper, and whether it's Begovic or someone else, it's got to be someone that can help and. Well, it's going to definitely improve our goalkeeping situation. Not berating anyone that we've got, but it's just I don't think any of them are Premier League quality, and none of them have Premier League experience. So it's something we definitely need to build on.
And Kieran, flicking through these questions now. We've been dragging this out for 59 minutes. I can't believe where the time's gone. We're moving on to Instagram now. Some questions on Instagram, and this first one has come from Emma. She asks, is there any chance of Nakamba making the marvellous move to Luton? Let's hope so. Let's hope so. I think the last update we heard from sort of a reliable enough source, it was 99.9% done. A few, not disputes, but a few conversations about the wage. And that won't be Nakamba being greedy, I can assure you that. Of course, he's got his foundation that he wants to protect as well. So that's probably the only reason things are holding up. I can't really see him not signing. And I don't know if that's me being too hopeful, if that's me being too confident, but I just see him playing Premier League football with Luton Town next season.
Yeah, so do I. And I think you only have to look at... There's a couple of things I look at from this perspective. Is one, the lack of leaks that have come out about potential other players coming in. Like, for example, Drame, it's gone quiet, really quiet. And then we're linked with Ashley Young. And then Leeds United are all over Twitter like, oh, it's Cody. And we're like, yeah, great, cool, that's not happening. Cheers, lads. Whereas then you look at a Nakamba and it's been ongoing. It's just been, yeah, there's this, maybe there's that. Oh, but they might explore this option. It's always been a thing. And there's also been a lack of other option. Like, yeah, we were linked with that guy from Midtjylland, but again, it was like one report, quiet since. Linked with Ben Pearson. He's since signed a new deal at Stoke. It's one of those where, either way, regardless. And it's one of those where you hope it's done. Like, you then look at Villa's midfield now, and they've just signed Yuri Tielemans, and without disrespecting Nakamba, I don't exactly think he's top of their priority list. And where they obviously want to free up funds potentially, to obviously further more signings, they're linked with, Pau Torres and all this, that, and the other. Getting Nakamba off their books, getting their wages off their books, frees them up for more players for the Conference League. That's the only thing I could see him staying for, is like maybe playing Conference League football. But again, signing Tielemans, McGinn, Ramsey, Douglas Luiz, Kamara, like, do you need Nakamba as well? No. 6th choice midfielder. Come on, boy. Come to Luton.
Okay, we'll go on to the other Instagram post. The Instagram question we got from Harry Folgate. Hi guys, first time poster, long time fan here. You seem to have real talent on your hands with Louis Watson. Is he ready to be a Premier League player, or do you think a loan to a Championship club this season would be better for his development? We've spoken about Louis Watson. We're excited about his development. What do you think is best for Louis Watson, Kieran?
Sort of alluded to it before recording, and for me, in light of Sonny Bradley going Derby, I would quite like the idea of Louis Watson going there too. I said earlier that I would rather him go to a high-end League One team that are pushing promotion, and if you were to ask me who's getting promoted out of League One this year, Derby would be in my 3. I would rather him be involved in that setup than be involved in a mid-championship to low-end championship setup, and he gets bit part play time. Like, you've only got to look at Elliot Thorpe last season, went to Burton Albion, come in, manager brings him in, 2 weeks later, manager gets sacked, and the new manager goes, yeah, I don't want you. He just doesn't play. And that's then a whole waste of a season on a man's development. If the manager, say if they're playing for a low-end championship team, send Louis Watson to, sorry for the example, lads, but Rotherham, and they're fighting a relegation battle by December, and they sack Matty Taylor, you think, okay, is the new manager going to want him? Is the new manager going to play him? You don't want that. You'd rather him be involved in a setup like Derby, who are going to be pushing up that top half, who are going to have higher ambitions, which means he is going to play regularly and he's actually going to be an influential role in their promotion, and therefore develop better as a player, having those winning experiences rather than just being a bit part player in another system.
We'll go on to the penultimate question here, and it's back to Twitter, and it's from our editor, Mark Lomax. Why have we had such a struggle to find a long-term goalkeeper, injuries aside, and end up with a new keeper most seasons? it's a head scratcher. It's a real head scratcher. It's one that I didn't know the answer to before. It's one that I still don't know the answer to. It's one that's very difficult to answer. But I think it comes down to scouting in a sense. I think it's a lot more difficult to scout a goalkeeper than it is for outfield positions. There's a lot more technical demands that you don't quite understand unless you are a goalkeeper yourself. But I think now we've got, like Kevin Pilkington in the setup. I think he'd play a big part in scouting. So I think we will become better at it. I think in time we will be able to recruit effectively on the goalkeeping front as well as we do on the outfield front as well. I think someone like Begovic coming in could also help. If we were to get somebody younger as well, I think he could play a big part in shaping and continuing the development of a younger goalkeeper. It's something that we've struggled with. Yeah, I think that's fair to say. But, I wouldn't say it's been disastrous. I think we've still managed to find decent enough keepers. Horvath done a solid enough job for what was required at the start of the season. I know we've opted not to take him up on his permanent option. I think there's also Jack Walton as well. I think he's an okay, decent goalkeeper, and I think when we bought him at championship level, I think that he could have maybe played a part next season if we were still in the division. And James Shea as well, somebody else that came in the lower leagues and has risen through. But of course, there has been some stories. Sluga didn't really work out. Matt Macy hasn't really worked out so far. I don't know if you boys agree with that. I think there's a noticeable difference, or notable sort of level decrease of where we've recruited our outfield players and goalkeepers, but I don't think it's that bad. I think it's probably more noticeable because of how effective we have been in the outfield market.
Yeah, I think the thing for me is the one keeper that I've seen us have in the last few years, and I think a lot of you will go, oh yeah, forgot about that. Jed Steer, for me, is the one that when we signed him in, I thought, it's a loan, but if he plays well, we're getting this man in permanently and he'll be unbelievable. And he showed glimpses of being unbelievable, and he just looked that step above what we'd had before. It was like, yeah, Sluga's left, cool. Like, Sluga had his moments, saved us in that Wigan game, made some big saves, even for all his howlers, but that's another story. Whereas Jed Steer comes in and immediately you just have this big 6'4" keeper who commands his box, jumps up, wins the ball from corners. But it's that commanding that I think we've missed more so. Like, it's the communication side of things. Like, yeah, I think to allude to sort of what you'd said then, we've been quite lucky that our defence, whether we've had Bradley or Lockyer in the middle of that three over the last couple of seasons, we've had someone that can communicate and control a back line. And we've not necessarily needed it from a Sluga, from a Horvath, who's come in on loan, doesn't know the team, or Sluga's case, doesn't necessarily speak the language very well. And it's like, okay, we don't need that reliance on communication yet. But now we're stepping up to the Premier League. I want someone behind. I back Tom Lockyer and his communication and his sort of presence to control that back line. But someone like Jed Steer was that example of a man that can communicate, talk to his defenders, and make that unit even more compact and even stronger. That is the main characteristic we need in whatever keeper we sign. And you can see why Begovic is probably coming in as a result, because he is that 6'6", 6'7", demanding keeper that takes up so much space. And you go up for a header, he's got the ball. See you later. He's gone. That's the sort of, we need someone that commands the space they control and communicates with their team, not just kind of like Horvath had his moments, but in hindsight, he was a placeholder for a really good defence. And it's all fun and games having a really good defence, but those characteristics I've said then, that's the next level now. That's where you go from really good to elite, and that's what we need to start looking at. He's muted again.
I've done it again.
He's shocking.
But Alex Palmer is similar. I know we only seen him for 2 games, but I think he was similar, where he showed glimpses of that real quality pushing at the very top end of being very good. I'd like to sign him. He's another goalkeeper I've been very fond of. We'll go on to the last question, and this comes courtesy of Mr. Dale Robertson. So I'll ask this to you, Kieran. Can this Luton team emulate the sort of late 80s, the early 90s of what we seen at Luton now? I know we weren't old enough to watch it week in, week out, but I think we've all heard enough stories to understand what we were about back then. We were tough, we were gritty, but we also had some real quality in some of the wide players and the attackers we had. And in that respect, I could see a lot of similarities. I think maybe we did have more creative talents back in the late 80s and early 90s. Of course, Mick Harford was probably the figurehead of it all in terms of in the attacking side of things. Steve Foster, probably the figurehead defensively speaking. You could probably draw a lot of similarities to Morris and Mick Harford, probably because Morris is now under Harford's wing. But they're both powerful strikers that win their aerial duels and also have had a lot of quality about them. I'll ask you first, Kieran. Can you see sort of any similarities?
100%. I think it helps having someone like Harford, who was obviously a player during that era, and having him amongst the club throughout all these years since he's been a player, to sort of carry that ethos back down through the club as the years have gone on. Like, you drew a comparison there, like Harford and Morris, and I was sort of thinking of, you think of, like, you speak to my dad, Stephen speaks to his sort of family, you speak to your dad, Bill, about the players that they would have seen growing up, and you're looking at, you mentioned there Mick Harford, your Ricky Hills, your Brian Steen, Steve Foster, Mal Donaghy. I could sit here forever. Even you think when we were probably knee high, and you're looking at players like Chris Coyne, Kevin Nichols, players like that. Like, no matter who we sign, there always seems to be that sort of player where we look at and go, he reminds me of that person. Like you just said then, the Harford and Morris thing. Similar to, you look at then Steve Foster commanding the line in the 80s, Chris Coyne in the noughties, and now Sonny Bradley and Tom Lockyer. Like, there's always that comparison, but the reason we're able to make those comparisons fairly often in really good periods like now is because of that ethos around the club. Like, the model of player we look for, I don't think has ever changed, like from when our parents were kids to now. And then you think, we're all mid-20s, give us 10, 15 years, we've had children, and we're going to be telling them, oh, do you remember that Sonny Bradley fella? Yeah, he reminds me of this guy who's now playing for Luton in 15, 20 years' time. And it's just, but that will only be a thing. You won't see that at very many teams, but you'll see it at Luton, not just now. So to answer the question, this team is emulating that team of the 80s. That team of the 80s that was taking the lead by storm in the first division, Littlewoods Cup final. That is the route we're going down. We're back in the Premier League. We're back in the big time. And those people that are older than us, that I speak to quite often in sort of like the gym I work at, it's like, yeah, I remember when Luton were good in the 80s. And it's like, yeah, but now we get to say that we're good now. So if anything, yes, it is a big emulation. More so the 80s for me, because that's where we are synonymous in a lot of older generations' heads of, oh, Luton were good then. But now we, as fans who have gone through the rubber and gone through the mud, we now get to turn around and say, that is when we were good. And we are good now, not just then. And we don't have to reminisce on times where we were, and even come out of the womb yet, let alone supporting them.
I enjoyed that. I enjoyed the answer very much. That was a very good way to end it, I think. We're up to 74 minutes now. So I think that's definitely broken the record of our longest, definitely video, because this is our second one. But in terms of the podcast as well, this is definitely up there. That leaves us to say goodbye for this evening. One thing that we would like to ask is that you subscribe to us on our newly formed YouTube channel. Looking through the watchers so far, we've only got 16% that have subscribed, and we'd love that figure to bump up. We also, on Spotify, rate us 5 stars. That would be greatly appreciated as well. Until next week, when we probably bring you some more transfer rumours as they continue to spice up. It is goodbye from us.